definitely looking forward to hearing what they have to say.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. And again, Vulcun takes us for another roller coaster ride. But as well, on the other side, Gambit made sure they were right in the driver's seat as well. And at the end of that game, you couldn't help but see Alex E shaking his head. We've seen a lot of times that teams win games, but they're not satisfied with the win.
Yeah, Gambit looked really out of sorts after that game, and I don't know. You have to really avoid that kind of mentality because they still have to play for this potential tiebreaker if Ozone beats Beneski. So
it almost felt like at one point in that game, just based off of Alex's reaction after the game, that he had kind of resigned himself to being like, "Holy crap, we just about got eliminated from the World Championships."
Same time, if you're here playing at World Championships for staying into the game and against an opponent that on paper you're a favorite against, and then you have such a horrible game, and you basically win because of, let's face it, a really poor decision by Vulcun, then you're not going to be happy. Especially because you still need to play against somebody that's getting better and better and is a lot more collected.
This is just heartbreaking, too, because Vulcun did such a good job in the early game, and I mean, it comes back to it. We've all been impressed by their play in the early game, and, oh, man, we were all sitting back here. We thought they had this one in the bag.
I was doing the Zuna dance already for calling like Vulcun. I was so close to voting for them, and then I was so happy for them. They were doing so well, and nope.
Out there, I heard Ozone kind of cheering. They're like, yeah, go Vulcun, because obviously they really wanted Vulcun to win because that would make it so they wouldn't have to play a tiebreaker match. And I was actually sitting with Kenma, their coach.
And how did that go? Yeah, Vulcan's coach.
It was absolutely hilarious when they threw like a 10K unwinnable game for Gambit, essentially, right? Okay, so there's like 12 different decisions you can make at that time. And there's only one of them that even gives you a tiny chance of getting outplayed and throwing the game. And Vulcun chose that one. And it was just, his face was just like completely plain, like, oh, just another day with Vulcun. But like, what was coming out of his mouth was just like, like he was just so angry at his team because this happens so much. You know, this is Vulcun Throwbargains at its finest.
And, you know, coming into this, it's an intense moment. The stage is one that puts the pressure on high, and we'll actually put the replay on your screen of this Baron attempt here that really, Crepo, you said you should never 50-50 a Baron when you're ahead.
Okay, basically, I hail from the level of Europe, in which we do too many Barons that just don't work out. So we're getting the hang of it when it's wrong to do a Baron. Basically, if you're 4,000 gold ahead with this composition, and the worst thing you can do is give them a 50-50 chance on Baron, especially when people are low.
It's weird, too, because we were both watching this together, and I was thinking this is where Vulcun wins the game, because I was expecting them to actually burst down the Baron and then turn, but they froze in the Baron pit because they're afraid of the steal, obviously.
I felt really glorious because everyone's like, they're not going to do Baron. No reason. I was like, yep, it's going to fail, it's going to fail, it's going to fail. But yeah, if we roll the replay, let's see now. Who's able to contest this? Psycho Sid's coming. They're gonna assist on a Baron. Only Elise and Aries. Look, right now, Zyra's in the base. Still in the base. They started Baron. Bloodwater's not tanking. Sona should be tanking there. Sona should be on 20% HP instead of Mancloud and Xmithy. Psycho Sids tries to peel, stopping Diamond rather. Diamond doesn't care. He has vision. He knows when to go in. And he will dodge pretty much the crescendo a little later. This is really good. Elise keeps them busy. They're all dancing around, getting chunked by Baron. You have to know at this point, Gambit still has a Shenalty. It's even worse because they're going to use the Shenalty on Zyra right now.
And by the time they peeled Crepo, they were already all sitting at about 20% health. They sat in there for too long. They didn't make the decision. They either kill Baron or they peel, and they froze.
You really, if you're going to make a call like that too, you have to know whether you're going to just burst down to Baron or whether you're going to turn. That has to be clear in the team's mind when that objective comes up. And there was just a bit of a split decision right there.
So you have to realize once this Baron drops, we're going to see have a look at the gold values. It's going to be a little later now, so Gambit will finish this. You have to start. They started around 24,000 gold, which was 6,000 gold down. Right now they got Baron. They're 2,000 gold down, plus Baron buff, which is, I don't know the math, roughly 4,000 gold worth of stats. Plus the momentum you get from that. Like, you're back in the game. They're going to be crushed.
Well, that also transitioned into turrets as well.
Yep, exactly.
Ja, what, you know, coming in time after time again with Vulcun having that kind of thing weighing on the back of their mind, the fact that these games don't go in their favor after a mistake, how does that, you know, play into your game?
So I feel like a mistake of this magnitude only happens after an incredibly trying mental week for them, because they, after the victory, and you could disagree with this if you want, but after they had that first game victory over Fnatic, it almost seemed like every Vulcun game we saw was a little bit downhill from there because I don't think they were mentally recovering from any of their losses, and it affected their decision-making.
Then again, this is something that should be textbook for a team. Like knowing from a team that wastes so many games on Barons myself, you have to really realize, like, if you will never go for a Baron that possibly is a 50-50 when ahead, then this situation doesn't occur. You need to know whether you're going to rush the Baron down or stop them. There can't be an in-between, and if there's an in-between, you're strategically wrong, even if it works out in the end.
Well, the most consistent thing about Vulcun throughout LCS and even in my personal scrims against Vulcun, it seems like they will either make this horrible throw happen, or mistake happen, I should say, and then they'll go completely on tilt and lose the rest of the game, or they won't make it and then they'll just crush. But most of the time what happens is when they do make this mistake, they go definitely on tilt. You can tell by the way that they're handling the game how many, like, rookie mistakes, I guess you could say, people getting caught, bad team fights, bad engages, like even poor warding after they make the throw happen. They're not even out of the game at this point.
Right,
They're just a few thousand gold behind. They don't have to lose all these towers. They don't have to lose all these fights. I feel like whatever happens after they do it, they're just mentally like, oh my god, it happened again, like this sucks. And then they can't really think about the game properly.
And the reason we're so adamant about this, because we don't want to bash Vulcun, is just because they play the game so well in the early game. They have really good picks all around. They catch people off guard. Manclaw's been playing phenomenal mid lane at times, and then they just don't transition well. There's always that little communication error in the mid game that has such a huge impact on them.
So let's talk about that little communication error and something that comes off of a lot, and that's going on tilt. It's something we don't talk about a lot. Monty, feel free from the outer perspective on your team as well. The highs and the lows of tilt, how does it affect the game? You know, either one, Double Lift, go ahead and start for us. But what are the kind of factors that you lose out when you start going on tilt?
One of the biggest things that you can't really tell is communication. When you're in like a bad mood and you're just tunnel vision on, wow, this sucks, or like I'm feeding, or oh, we just threw the game, you're not really inclined to communicate as much as you would if you're like positive, like, oh my god, we're in the control of this game, I feel so good, we just need to snowball this momentum. So when you're feeling down, communication is bad. Mechanically, I don't think there's any difference being on tilt, but just in terms of like synergy with your team, making decisions and communication, it all goes down the drain.
Yeah, and specifically what I've noticed, because, you know, I'm in a lot of the CLG games to listen to their voice comm, what specifically happens is that the planning falls apart. So it's not necessarily the fact that the players are not giving each other the same information, but it's difficult to formulate a plan of action in order to retake control of the game.
Somebody calls blue 42 and nobody moves.
Same thing, what you have to avoid is scapegoating. Even if somebody face checks a brush on level 1, it happened. There's no way you can turn back the game. Even a good zillion will never be able to turn back time. Bad pun. But yeah, anyways, it's really hard, and it's so hard if you're playing, and especially in these high-pressure tournament matches, everything's on the line. You prepare for weeks, and then somebody makes a mistake, and a good team will not blame him for that. A coach will blame him after the game, but not during the game.
Final thoughts?
I think you can sum up tilting a little bit with the difference between forwards and backwards thinking, because after you make a mistake, you're so inclined to say, we shouldn't have done this. If this wouldn't have happened, we'd be winning. Man, why did we do that over and over again? That is completely irrelevant within the context of the game, but so many teams I listen to constantly play the blame game within the match. You have to drop that immediately and always be forward thinking in every aspect of every game, and that actually doesn't happen once you make mistakes.
Monty, I know you're itching, then we got to move on.
I am itching. I just want to say, and something that's been impressing me, yeah, thank you for the nice scratch there, but it has been Fnatic, because when we've seen them behind early, they have a plan about how to get back into it, especially that game that they played against Ozone, and it looked like Ozone was cruising, and yet they set up those brush picks, and they find ways to win. They always have their little Fnatic brush hiding plan, and I think that says a lot about the team and how deep they can go here at this tournament.
So with that, let's check out the standings heading into the 5th and final regularly scheduled game in Group B. With their win, Gambit is guaranteed at least a 2nd place finish.